If I need to think about how to promote the church, I always go back to, Pastor, what is God speaking to you for this church? Because what God is speaking to you for this church is what God is speaking to you for this community.
Hey guys, it's Frank from Tithely with another episode of Modern Church Leader. Great to be here today. Super excited actually to talk about church marketing and church communications with a gentleman who's been at it for a long time. I'm joined by Kelvin Co. Kelvin, how's it going today?
It's going great. Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, it's good to have you on. And I do a lot of these, and I actually your scene is pretty awesome. So well done on the setup over there.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, this is the studio where we do Zooms, courses. So I'm like, yeah, let me take advantage of it.
Yeah, use it. It's perfect. It's perfect.
Thank you.
Well, Kelvin, you're working currently at a place called Ready, Set, Grow, and so I want to dig into that a little bit. But I'd love to start with just tell us, a little bit about yourself and your background in ministry and types of roles you've served in over the years and how you got to Ready, Set, Grow.
Yeah, thank you. Well, first of all, I just want to say, man, I have the deepest respect for you guys. Tithely is a company, it's a business, right? But it is a kingdom-hearted business. And, sure, your clientele, your product is about serving churches with a product that they need, right? An electronic way for a digital way for people to give their offering. But like this podcast, which represents you guys' heart, it's about adding value. As a customer of Tithely, back when I was, with the Oaks, it's like what we felt from you guys isn't just a business transaction, but it's always about how can you add value to us? And that's, in secular terms, that's just called customer service. But what stands out to us is, no, it's how can you add value to us to come alongside of us to advance the Great Commission?
Yeah.
And that is just how kingdom entrepreneurs should be. And I just wanted to start out by saying amazing, deep respect, mad respects, and even this podcast, Modern Church Leaders. Do you need to do this? I don't know. Probably not. But no, you chose to allocate your most valuable resource, which is, Frank, your time, and your team's time and resources to continue to add value to the kingdom. So I just wanted to start by, giving honor where honor is due, especially what you guys do, and the heart behind it, in my opinion, is rare, right? And then now to answer your question.
Well, I appreciate that, and let me just say that the whole company, right? Like it's myself, but it's 200 employees that love serving the church and wake up every day pretty excited about what they're doing. So we, even as a company, feel honored by all the people that we have here that really are passionate about serving churches, and it's kind of core to who we are. So I love feedback, right? I love hearing unsolicited third-party kind of feedback on what's going on, and it's representative of all the employees here. So really appreciate that.
Well, share that to the 200 staff members there. They deserve to hear it.
Yeah, amen. Will do.
So a little bit about myself. Well, let's start with the most important. I've been a Christ follower since 1991. I've been married for 25 years.
Nice.
My wife Lucy and I have a 19-year-old son. We're grateful that he loves the Lord. He attends Oral Roberts University, and he's part of ORU Worship. So he's using his passion, his gifts, his talents as a musician to serve the kingdom. That's what he did when he was here at the church, and he continues to do that. And we're excited about that. And then I've had the privilege of being in full-time ministry for the last 27 years. Started as a media pastor at a church in the Philippines where I was born and raised. And then for 6 years at Christ Church with Dr. David Ireland, where I was the executive director of media over there, where I oversaw, live service production, creative arts, as well as lead the production of the TV and radio program of Dr. Ireland and the donor development component of that. And then for the last 16 years, I had the privilege of serving as the executive pastor of creative arts at Oaks Church. And then my current role, I've been here now for a year, is working with Ready, Set, Grow. We are a coaching and consulting company that provides coaching and consulting to churches. I work with Scott Wilson, for those of you know. He basically has 30 plus years of ministry experience, leadership, has written lots of books, because lots of pastors approach him, about, hey, can you help me with this? Can you coach me for with this and all of that? And he responded to God's call to share his gift, his apostolic gifts. Him and I know each other very well, so I now serve in this company as the director of communication and strategy. Like Tithely, I get to experience the joy now of advancing the kingdom by serving, the lead pastors, the pastors, the leaders in those churches, to hopefully have exponential multiplication impact for the kingdom.
Yeah. And it's new, right? You guys have been at it for
a year.
Year or so?
Yep, for a year.
Yeah.
Launching a company in the middle of COVID, that was a big faith step. But here we are.
Yeah. And because you and Scott were at the Oaks, Scott was the lead pastor or senior pastor at the Oaks for a long time. I don't know how many years, but a long time he was there.
Yes. Yep.
So you guys have a long history and are taking all that experience. I've had the opportunity to golf with Scott a few times, so it's been fun getting to know him, and excited to get to know you on this podcast. So
I'm excited.
Now,
Thank you.
I love that you oversaw a lot of different things over the years. Part of those things in your role was the actual marketing and communication at churches. So I'd love to dig into that a little bit. Maybe give us I just don't think at bigger churches, I think there's an understanding of marketing and communication and maybe an acceptance and an eagerness to do it well. At smaller churches, you don't have a marketing person, you don't have a communications person. You may not even think that marketing and communications is a thing that we should be doing as a church, or it just might. Your mental model of church just doesn't have that in it. You know what I'm saying? But it's actually really important.
Yes, it is.
So I would just love your take. How do you think churches should be thinking about marketing and communication in the church context?
Yeah, I'll start with my anchor, right? My foundational principle anchor behind the whole bucket called creative arts, which includes marketing. All of those things are anchored to, in my opinion, one principle. All of these communication, technology, production tools are all simply vehicles to accomplish one thing and one thing only. Pastors are called to shepherd a community, right? All of those tools that I mentioned, including marketing, are simply vessels, conduits to help facilitate the relationship between the pastor and the sheep that God has called them to pastor. Technology evolves and changes and advances marketing principles. Before it was flyers, tracts, newspaper advertising. Now there's social media and TikTok and all, fancy. The principle is the same. A pastor is called to a community, and all of these tools are simply to facilitate that shepherding relationship, right? It's just a shepherding relationship. in practical terms, what does that translate to? A pastor's job, when called to pastor a people, is to seek the Lord. Lord, what is your message to these people? We tend to limit that to simply be, what is the message to be preached on a Sunday, to the people who are coming to church nowadays, who would watch online? No, my heart behind that is, if I need to think about how to promote the church, I always go back to, Pastor, what is God speaking to you for this church? Because what God is speaking to you for this church is what God is speaking to you for this community. Then, similar to creating graphics for a series or a video for to support a message, the marketing plan, the marketing strategy is simply taking that message. Let's say, for example, a pastor may be crying out to the Lord and God reveals to him a pain that the community is experiencing. Maybe it's the pain of unforgiveness or divorce that's pressing in most marriages in the community. All right, well, you know what? We are going to take the gospel message of healing, what God says about marriage, the way families can experience healing, and package that as the marketing message to serve the people, because that's what they would respond to, right? So whether it's a social media campaign or an email campaign or Facebook ads, the principle, in my opinion, does not change. I'm simply trying to get what God has put in a pastor's heart and connect it to the people that he's called to serve, and the Holy Spirit can do the work and move people's heart to respond to that and go, oh, that was what I needed. Oh, wait, that touches the pain I'm feeling. Let me go check out this church or the message this Sunday or this series or this event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that. Because I guess it all does come down to that. I think most churches, most pastors think that the way that happens is Sunday morning, 10 a.m. in the building with my 150 members, right? Like that is, and they may not call that marketing, communications, whatever. I mean, it is communicating fundamentally.
Yes.
But it's like that's the format, and that's the whatever you want to call it, the structure, the format, the tradition of church, right? Sunday morning, 10 o'clock, we have church. You're in the building. You get the message from the pastor, and then you hopefully go out and live it out during the week. Maybe you have a Wednesday night, then you're back on Sunday, kind of thing.
And that's that thinking is not wrong. In fact, I would say that thinking is solid. That's a foundational block, and it's now building off of that block. Remove all of the bells and whistles that we have now with social media and all of that. Well, what did people do, and what do people still do? You have a good experience, well, you go talk about it, right? I heard a great message. I had this problem, and this problem got fixed, but because of this class that I attended at church, or this message I heard at church, or Bible reading helped improve my quality of life, or whatever that may be, similar to I went to watch a good movie and I tell my friends about it. It's just there are now so many ways to tell it. Right? Now, the good news is with all of these cool tools and toys that we have, we can simulate those conversations. So one of the ways I always tell my team, or even with consultants that I work with, my philosophy is, how can we simulate that relationship with this tweet, with this IG post, with this email, with this invite card, with this ad, with this 10-second video, because essentially it's a sampling of the product. And pardon me for saying that, but for using that term, I don't mean to belittle or cheapen it, but that main product that we're marketing, using business terms, is the relationship between the pastor and a congregation member. So for somebody who's not yet that, oh, this is what that pastor has to say as it relates to my life? I'm kind of interested. Well, now let me check that out. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the message is this main thing. It happens every Sunday. It's the meat, right, of using God's word, sharing what God's put on your heart, and then being able to package that in a lot of ways, whether it's on social media or on your website, and kind of use that content in lots and lots of formats.
Yes.
How
And so for
how can a
churches
church?
that, oh, sorry, go ahead. I apologize.
No. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, and there's this guy named Gary V, who's just this big marketing guru right now. Most of you guys may not be interested in checking him out because there's lots of bleep words in his content.
Language.
Let me
Yes,
summarize
language.
yeah.
Language
But let
notice.
me summarize his basically his big takeaway. Long format can be translated to lots of short formats. So imagine that 20, 30, 45-minute message that you preach. How many sound bites, how many quotes, how many carousel posts can you make? So to your point, yes, that message, once it's preached, there's so many, not just marketing, but value add, life-changing, potentially life-saving and prophetic content that can be put out there that can literally minister to someone's life and potentially define their eternity.
Yeah. I mean, I just think about, Instagram, TikTok, maybe Facebook a little bit, but generationally, Instagram, TikTok, people just sit there and scroll on that stuff.
Yes.
Right? And they're just looking at what folks are putting out, and the algorithm over time kind of learns your interests and stuff that you spend more time on, things you like, things you comment on, and then you start seeing more of that stuff. It's such an opportunity for churches, but it's also hard, right? I recognize that the smaller church
Yes.
is hard pressed to do the core things,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Putting on Sunday services, leading small groups, like doing counseling or pastoral kind of meetings. Like there's this really core stuff that is what you do as a pastor.
Yes.
Going off and doing the extra stuff to take your Sunday message and break that up into a bunch of other content that's now out on social media or on YouTube or used in your newsletter or put on your website can be a daunting task. I mean, have you learned any ways of making that daunting task more manageable or more doable for the small church?
Oh, yeah. Pro tip. Look at your millennials. Right? Sometimes we overthink it. We think that all of these posts are a big production. Oh, who's going to edit the video? Who's going to get the file? Who's going to create the graphics? Who's going to look at your millennials and go to their social media accounts? Oh, look at this guy. Look at this girl. Oh, and they do those posts in what? A few seconds in real time? And then have them start a ministry. At the end of the day, it's a great discipleship opportunity. Most problems that we experience in the church, I've learned, always, not just some or most, always translates to a discipleship opportunity. Oh man, I don't have time to, create social media posts. Look at your millennials and your Gen Zs. There are those who's like, because what are some of the properties of them? They're either media savvy or media natives, right? They're media savvy or media tech savvy or tech natives, which means that's second nature to them. So, of course, some teaching needs to be given. Most of them don't need the technology teaching. Most of them just needs, what do you call, Andy guardrails, right? You don't want to do this, you don't want to do that, just some parameters. And then, just, and I'm sure you can also find a more mature and faithful millennial or Gen Zer that, could just do this for you.
Yeah.
It's one of the easiest things. Yeah, I've had lots of pastors like, hey, how do I get this going? Like, I don't have a media guy. Oh, for social media, you don't need a media guy because it's simpler than that. Everything can be done on the phone. And, just pull up from anybody in your youth ministry. You can easily find somebody who's got some good stuff, like good
Who knows
looking
what's going
things
on?
going
Yeah.
on, and you just recruit them. Again, it's a discipleship opportunity, right,
Yeah.
for
How,
them.
I mean, that's a great point. I'm also, again, just on this kind of smaller church. How do you help pastors see the importance of this stuff? Should it be important? Like, should they care? And if they should, how do you kind of help them go along that path of, recruiting the volunteers and putting in the time and energy to kind of make it doesn't need to be elevation level or what, right? It's not that. It's different. It's very
Yeah.
different. So that's not the expectation.
Yeah.
But having that presence and putting it out there for your community that you serve. How do you help them see it's important and then take the right steps to build out that kind of volunteer team?
Yeah. So the irony is, so before I answer that real quick, the irony is, I shouldn't say it's irony. I think it's a good thing. I happen to, be friends with the team at Elevation, and we assume that it's like this elaborate, technology setup. Most of their social media posts are what I described. It's a couple of kids who are just really slick at it in real time using their phones. Because research has also found that we actually get higher engagement from from posts that look like they're raw and real,
Yeah.
but basically phone
Yeah.
based, not your black magic or red camera and then it's polished with all those graphics and all those things. They literally have an army of millennials going around on their phones and just and they've been trained to what the parameters are for the types of posts that they do. So now, so to answer your question, first, it's a pastor responded to the calling to pastor a church because they have a missional heart and a missional calling. So, social media, I tend to look at this way. If you are called to go be a missionary, I don't know, pick a country, China, of course, you want to learn the language and you want to become familiar with their culture, right? In order to minister to that mission field. Well, if your people, the people that you're called to, are living in social media, if you frame social media, the digital space, as a mission field, like you would if you're called to China, then would we not want to learn the language and the culture of that people group that we're called to minister to?
Right.
So that's the first foundational thought. And then second is, I find that often the mental block of trying to start a ministry team, like especially in the creative arts realm, because it's daunting and complex for most lead pastors unless they're tech savvy or geeky. So to remove the mindset, remember earlier I said it is a discipleship opportunity. So that double clicks to 2 points, right? The discipleship opportunity always double clicks to 2 points. Do you have a leader that you trust that can take this on? Regardless of how big or small the church is, there's usually a few leaders that the lead pastor is working with, right? Maybe 2, 3, 4.
Right.
Who do you trust? And often, I've seen breakthroughs happen to churches or pastors that I talk to when I bring up this point. The default thinking when it comes to anything creative arts or media related is, let me find the expert in that. in my experience, what I find is I think part of why Scott and I work so well is instead of finding that video guy or that sound guy, find the person that knows your voice and you can trust to steward your voice and taste. Am I making sense there?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, so this person may not know how to edit a video or do graphics, but I trust that he knows my taste and he knows my voice. Now, empower and entrust him to go look for that team
Right.
rather than go look for that team yourself. So first of all, wow, you just empowered a leader. Imagine how that leader just felt, right? And now that leader doesn't have to be a paid leader. It's just somebody who, who it can be an elder. It can be somebody, a friend at church that, I never
Right.
thought about it that way. Oh, I know that person. Oh yeah, that person knows my style. He knows he understands why I like my Air Jordans. He knows why I like my preacher sneakers. Oh yeah, and I trust that, they know what I don't like, what I like. Oh yeah, I'll let them go find that person.
Right.
And then before you know it, and then, of course, there's follow-up to that conversation. Hey, let's pray together and believe that in 2 weeks, let's check in with each other. Have you found one or two people that you've seen, just savvy with their phones or looked at
Right.
social media accounts of people who I'm friends with or my IG followers that go to our church? And before you know it, you got a team going.
Right. Yeah. And then how do you keep the momentum? I think that's something that churches struggle with is, having that spark and maybe starting something like you had the idea, you find a great volunteer or there's a little team. But then how do you keep the momentum and keep building? Or it's almost like how do you keep building so you can create momentum to where
Yeah.
you start seeing it working and so you keep going and going and going? Because this stuff doesn't just magically become awesome the first week you try to do it.
Yes. It's two wings to fly the plane, right? To keep the plane flying, right? I've tried lots of trick moves, So like, hey, make this like fun activity or da da da. Yeah, please try all of those things, but the first wing of that plane needs to be love, right? Sometimes pastors forget to do what they're called to do. Pastor. So I don't know why, especially when it comes to creative arts ministry. Maybe because it just seems so out of their comfort zone. Like, pastor, a video editor, a social media volunteer, a photographer, right, just wants to be pastored as well. So first of all, pastor me. Love me. And you don't got to do anything extra or special that you don't already do. Be who you are. That's why I'm here, right? I'm here because I was called to your pastorate. Then just pastor me. And then the second wing to that plane is process, right? And when I say process, I'm not talking about systems and this is consistency. If what the church can do right now is simply take the message and translate those into posts, then what are the steps that need to happen between preaching and getting the files out?
Right.
Then let's start there, right? And just consistency, week in, week out. If that staff member, team member, volunteer, intern, part-time person can rely on the predictability of, oh, I'm going to get the sermon notes on Saturday. So I come in on Sunday, I can kind of anticipate. Or on Sunday, and I'm trained, I know what to do. So Sunday I do da da da. Or, oh, I'm waiting for that file. Well, has somebody taught me to get that file? Or is somebody going to get me that file? Is that reliable? Is that predictable? And then Is there consistency to checking and posting and responding, and consistency to celebrating the good work, and celebrating with, hey, volunteer Jim, dude, I saw somebody respond to that post that you made. Good job. That is what it's about. Oh, in fact, 2 Sunday goes, that guy showed up. He came, right? Or, whatever breakthrough or result that came out of it. Now,
Right.
as we mature, or as the organization gets bigger or have more resources, then the process becomes more complex, sophisticated. But the root rule, really, the secret for the success is consistency. When we process, we tend to overthink it and overengineer. Just consistently follow through on what works.
Yeah.
Right.
Consistency,
So
I think,
the
can
two
be hard
wings
is
is love,
and consistency.
love and consistency in the process.
And you just have to keep at it, right? And that's true for, I think pretty much anything. It's very rare that, you have this sort of first try, you hit a home run. Like, you got to keep at it, keep trying, keep practicing, keep learning.
Yes.
Keep going. And, a year later, you might start seeing some, or you might, after a year, look back and go, wow, we really got better over the course of 12 months, right? And things are starting to click.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. What, I guess, just as we touch on this towards the end here, like, are you seeing any, like, church marketing communication trend or like changes that have kind of hit over the last 18 months, right? Like coronavirus, pandemic, church from home, online church, all that kind of stuff. Hybrid church is a thing that's popping up. But what trends are happening that do you think are, like, kind of here to stay, and how should churches be thinking about them?
Okay. Several things come to mind. So I think I can boil it down to 2 or maybe 3 things, right? So we've gone through, I don't know if it's the full cycle, but a pretty much significant cycle of that crazy pandemic ride of, hey, we can't congregate. Oh, it's digital. It's, and what's going to happen to brick and mortar church? So I don't know if you call it a trend, but a revelation. Number one is, can't replace brick and mortar, right? People congregating, fellowshipping, Acts 2, God's people coming together. Yeah. There's no replacement. It's not about the quality of the production or the how eloquent my pastor is. We have access to the best preachers in the world at our fingertips. It's not about Stephen Furtick or Rick Warren or Michael Todd. It's, I'm called to this congregation and we congregate. Sure, that online service is convenient if I am not in the mood to go to church, but brick and mortar church is not just here to stay, but it is foundational because we are social people. We are created in God's image. He fellowships with 3, right? And he wants to fellowship with us. Jesus himself fellowshipped with people. That's foundational. And then in terms of marketing trend, right, because the tools are more savvy, targeting people, right, is an incredibly powerful tool that is available to churches that's not very expensive and is not very hard to do. So let me explain that a little bit further. Along with the benefit of how easy it is to get the word out there, is it's easy to get for everyone else to get the word out there, which poses a problem. Then there's noise. Then you're competing to be heard. Well, the good news is targeting people. You know how I don't know if you've experienced this, Frank, but we tend to be like, how do they know? We were just talking about
Yeah.
Air Jordans, and all of a sudden I get an
Ads.
ad,
Yep.
for an Air Jordan. It's like, this is scary. Well, the reality that's the reality of the world we live in.
Right.
Big Brother is watching, and they know, and the data is available to us as churches. So, I would, so that trend I would translate in practical terms for church leaders who are watching or listening into two steps. One, know your congregation persona, know your target audience, if you will, right? So, if your church is, let's just say New Life Nelson, right? New Life Church. So define who is New Life Nelson. Oh, he's 32 years old. He's married. Do the profile. It doesn't have to be crazy demographic research study. No, just look at your congregation, and it can be a 20-minute, 30-minute fun activity for you and your wife and your staff. Define who that person is, and then create a sponsored ad on Facebook or something targeting that profile, and then your post, that volunteer or that team that you just built, empower them to create a couple of posts and target those people to cut through the noise,
Right.
right? And some of those profiles that doesn't have to just be demographic information. It can be the answer to the question, what are the pains that New Life Nelson is feeling? Oh, it's financial, debt, or feeling insecure about raising their children, or things like that. And then so parenting content is what you put out there, and that you can target, and then have, when people do respond, have a follow-up question placed. So now I circle all of that back to my original point at the beginning. At the end of the day, everything we do are simply conduits to the relationship between a pastor and the people he or she is called to minister to. Right. You put a soundbite or a brief message or a graphic about parenting, and somebody responds or likes it. Well, that's essentially a conversation that the pastor just had with somebody at their church about parenting, right? And so imagine the opportunity for us to follow through, and for that pastoral relationship actually connect to a physical and a fellowship one, and ultimately a salvation and discipleship one.
Yeah. I mean, I love the thought of churches really understanding who their people are. And that can be a weird conversation or a weird thought process for a pastor or a staff to go through, to go, oh,
it is.
But isn't the gospel for everyone? Well, absolutely, right? It is. Jesus came and died for all of us. But, churches in different parts of the world, where I live right here, and you could go 10 minutes down the road, and the demographic and the types of people and families and all that, only 10 minutes away, could look a little different than here, right? And so the church that's here versus the church that's 10 minutes down the road might look a little different. And so, kind of really thinking about that, understanding it, and developing a thought process or a strategy around, like, okay, this is my kind of target audience for the church we have right here. It doesn't mean that people aren't welcome of all shapes and sizes and types and all that. It just means that there's something about who we are as a church and who we attract and the community we live in, and it tends to look like this. Great. Now I kind of know that, I recognize it. Maybe I, had to wrestle with that a little bit. And then you kind of go, okay, well, what kind of things are this group of people really working through, wrestling through, living through in their lives right now? Pretend it was a church in my area that had a bunch of me's in it, right? 40-year-olds, got a few kids, kind of professional careers, that kind of stuff. If you had a bunch of those in your church and the community was made up of that, you'd go, okay, well, what do they need spiritually? How do I meet those needs? And And so, yeah, parenting and finances and, marriage classes and things of that nature are probably going to speak to us, right? Like things that we're
Yeah.
really, kind of in the thick of.
And that is the biggest marketing trend, not just of church, of every business. Know
Yeah.
your audience and go after it. The technology is there.
Yeah.
Target them.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And I guess first knowing your audience, right? Being able to confidently say, this is the kind of person or group of people that I'm really going after. Not that I'm excluding others, but this is the sweet spot, and right, having some conviction about that. And then
Yeah.
having things going on at church that are for those people, right? You got to kind of have that going on. And then
Yes.
you can go target more of them, right? Because you're like, I've
Yes.
got the whatever, the parenting, new moms classes, or newlywed classes, or whatever it is, like whatever the things are, right, that speak to your audience.
Yeah.
And then you can go target, those, and you can get, the social media stuff going around those things, and, just really hone in on that particular audience. I just don't know if churches think that way, and I hope people hear this and go, oh man, I can do that. Like, that's cool. It makes sense to me. I can start, trying some of this. So love the conversation around all that.
Yeah. Thank you. It's been super, super fun. And I've had the blessing of seeing a lot of churches, like, oh, that clicked, and they tried it.
Yeah.
And see it translate to souls.
Yeah.
That's the best thing.
Yeah.
The best
Making an
thing ever.
impact, helping people know Jesus. That's it at the end of the day, right?
At the end of the day.
But finding those kind of felt needs that bring people in is a big part of the church connecting with the community and growing and introducing people to Jesus, right? So love that. Do you have any resources that you know of? I mean, obviously, Ready, Set, Grow, people should check you guys out. So tell us a little bit more about how to do that. And are there other resources, just online things that church leaders can learn from in this marketing communications world?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Visit rsgleaders.com, right? That's our website. RSG,
Okay.
obviously standing for Ready, Set, Grow.
RSG.
rsgleaders.com. Yeah, we have Ready, Set, Grow University. That's basically it's a library of resources. In fact, you can sign up for a 30-day free trial. To access a library of courses, master classes, sermon resources, webinars, and then we have 2 resources that are coming soon. In fact, next week we're launching it. Workshops, a workshop on helping churches grow their generosity culture. Right? It feels weird often to talk about money. But, that's something that Pastor Scott has gotten really good about. And we have seen minimum 15% increase with churches that we've helped. And at the end of the day, it is not about money. It's about people, the people in the church shifting in mindset, about stewardship, about missional thinking and living. And then imagine as a church actually being able to do more, hire the right people, do more mission things, do building, renovate the kids' building or buy the equipment that's needed, and so we have that a workshop coming up for that, a workshop on succession, right? I think Ed Stetzer said in the next 10 years there'll be about 380,000 pastors that will retire.
Wow.
So, but most pastors we found, 90-something%, do not have a succession transition plan, right? And Pastor Scott has walked a lot of pastors through how to put together a succession and transition plan. And it's not about, well, you're 60 years old, it's time to plan that. Imagine if you're 30, 40, 50 years old. He transitioned when God called him to at age 50, right? And he learned a lot and and it's pretty involved.
Yeah.
And then and then we have what's called Ready, Set, Grow Inner Circle, which is a immersive 3-year journey. It's a very close group of pastors that we work with for 3 years to help them break through and grow their church. It's pretty much everything we know we will give to you, and it's not DIY, it's DWY. We do it with you. And man, that is just the most amazing. So rsgleaders.com is where they can go. So
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Okay, I have a couple of quick questions to end the interview.
Yes, please.
Easy ones, rapid fire.
All right.
What's a book that you've read that sort of inspired you? I don't want to say the most, but just something you've read that really inspired you that other people should read.
Okay. Right now, my wife and I are reading together Guy Raz. He's an NPR podcaster. He just his podcast is called How I Built This, and this book, his book How I Built This, just came out December last year. Anyway, incredible. His podcast, basically, on his podcast he interviews founders of companies like Uber or Panera Bread or Lululemon, and oh my gosh, it is incredibly inspiring. It's very practical, and it's raw and real of how how to start a company, but even more than that, break through, like how to break through. The grit, the perseverance, to break through when you're dealing with obstacles,
Love that.
in your
Love
organization. Love that book. Love that book.
So my second question is, and you might have already given the answer, but what's a podcast that you're listening to right now?
Let's go fun one and serious one.
Okay.
Fun one is Wait, Don't Tell Me. It's NPR's, they call it the news quiz. Basically, they take current events, like the news, and then they just write jokes all around it. And it's just the funnest thing to do,
We probably all need more of that these days, so that's great.
Yeah, I love it. I've been listening to that for, more than 10 years. And then, yes, How I Built This with Guy Raz. If I'm to pick one to recommend, it's just so inspiring. And for church leaders, I dare say I strongly recommend it because it's powerful leadership thinking,
Right.
but not packaged in a leadership talk.
And it's not the church context, which I think
yes,
it's actually good for you to, like, in any industry. It could be for me listening to something that's not in even my industry, but like you listen to those things and you go, oh, that sort of applies to me, or that could work. I could try something like that over in my context. Like, I think that kind of stuff is really helpful for people.
And another way I feel that it can benefit a pastor is if you have business leaders in your congregation, that gives you tremendous insight on what challenges, struggles, and psychological, emotional, mental things that they go through.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. Kelvin, this has been great, man. Thank you for coming on the show.
Well, that was fun. You're
super
a
fun.
Great interviewer.
Thank you. Well, guys, thanks for watching, whether you're watching live or you're watching the recording. We're excited. Thanks for coming. We'll see you guys next week on another episode of Modern Church Leader. See ya.